I mean, you get nervous here and there when it's going, I don't want to say easy, but when the score is in your favor, it's like you have to be cautious. So a little bit nervous, but obviously I'm super happy to be here in quarters.
6-0, 6-2 in exactly 1 hour. Eala earned 0 break points across the entire match. Karolina Muchova dismantled her so completely that the first set was over in 22 minutes. And the tennis world expected the WTA to go quiet. Instead, something nobody predicted happened. WTA praises Alex Eala despite crashing out of Miami Open 2026 with the most lopsided scoreline of her WTA career, and the reaction caught the entire tennis world off guard. The 2024 Miami champion Danielle Collins went on Tennis Channel and said Eala's ability to absorb pace is world-class. On his podcast, Greg Rusetsky went further. "She's too good a player not to make it into the top 10, he said on record. Even Paul Annacone, who coached both Roger Federer and Pete Sampras, had already gone public with "I like her game" before Miami even began. The WTA published a feature during the tournament calling her a true global sensation. And after the 6-0, 6-2 loss, their official match report still described her as one of the most closely watched young players on tour. Karolina Muchova shocked the scoreboard, but the praise that followed, that shocked everyone else. Subscribe for the forensic breakdown that explains exactly why the tennis establishment is doubling down on a 20-year-old who just got outclassed. Because what they're seeing goes way beyond a single scoreline. To understand why the WTA's response matters, the scoreline needs to be laid out in full, because 6-0, 6-2 in 1 hour doesn't convey how total the domination actually was. Karolina Muchova, the 2026 Doha champion, walked onto the grandstand court at Hard Rock Stadium, ranked number 14 in the world, and proceeded to produce one of the most clinically efficient performances of her season. She fired 20 winners against just 11 unforced errors. Eala, by contrast, managed only 7 winners across the entire match, 2 of which came courtesy of Muchova misjudgments rather than anything Eala herself created. The opening set lasted just 22 minutes. Across that entire stretch, Muchova conceded only 6 total points, 2 on serve and 4 on return. Eala didn't reach game point until the 3rd game of the 2nd set, and when she finally did, Muchova responded with a return winner. The statistical gap was widest on serve and return. Muchova won 80% of her first serve points. Eala won 39% of hers. The Czech controlled 64% of Eala's first serve return points, meaning even when Eala got her serve in, Muchova was dictating the point off the return more often than not. Muchova never faced a breakpoint across the entire match, dropping only 8 total points on her delivery, 2 in the first set, 6 in the second. At 6-0, 4-0, the possibility of Muchova's first tour-level double bagel loomed. She had won 2 6-0, 6-0 matches before in her career, but both came at the ITF level, never at this stage of a professional tour event. Eala had suffered a bagel set only once before at WTA level, back in 2022 Madrid qualifying against Anna Bondar, years before she had established herself anywhere near the top 30. This was a fundamentally different context, a seeded player, a WTA 1000 round of 16, in the tournament where she made history 12 months earlier. Muchova, measured and satisfied, said afterwards, "It felt pretty good. You get nervous here and there when it's going. I don't want to say easy, but when the score is in your favor, you have to be cautious." Nothing in that quote suggests a player caught off guard. Muchova was precise, composed, and expecting exactly the performance she delivered, which is what makes the rest of this story so unusual. The shock didn't belong to the winner. Here is the part that made the tennis world do a double take. Within the same week that Eala absorbed a 6-0, 6-2 defeat in front of a packed grandstand, the WTA's own machinery moved in the opposite direction from what the scoreline would suggest. The WTA's official website published a feature interview during the tournament titled "One-on-One with Eala: Her Mindset, Her Truth, and Her Favorite Sitcoms." The language used wasn't cautious or measured. The WTA described Eala as a true global sensation and noted directly, in 1 year, the 20-year-old Filipina has gone from a relative unknown to one of the most popular WTA Tour players in the world. Then, after the Muchova loss, their official match report described the result as bringing an end to another notable Miami campaign for Eala, whose rise over the past year has made her one of the most closely watched young players on the tour. The result was 6-0, 6-2, and the official match report still called the exit notable. The framing is deliberate, and it tells you what the institution actually thinks this player represents commercially, regardless of any single scoreline. The WTA is not a charity. When it invests institutional language in a player, when it uses the words global sensation and most closely watched in the same week she loses a bagel set, that language reflects a calculation about where the attention is going, where the ticket sales are coming from, and which player is driving the sport's broader audience development. Eala's post-match press conference at the Australian Open in January drew over 100,000 live-stream views on the same day, surpassing those from both the reigning women's world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka and men's world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz. Dubai recorded a 48% year-on-year ticket sales jump during her run. The WTA has seen those numbers. The praise isn't sentimental, it's strategic. The most credible praise came from someone who has sat on the other side of the net against players of Eala's profile across an entire professional career. Danielle Collins, the 2024 Miami Open champion and former world number 7, was working as a Tennis Channel analyst at Hard Rock Stadium during the tournament. Her assessment of Eala was the most detailed player-to-player evaluation delivered publicly during Miami Week. Collins began by identifying the specific quality that makes Eala genuinely difficult to play. Not her power, not her serve, but something harder to quantify. She has some craftiness up her sleeve. She is just someone that I'm obviously very impressed with. Her ability to absorb is world-class. That word, world-class, in the context of a professional who reached world number 7, who won Miami, who has spent a career studying what separates good players from great ones, carries real weight. Collins wasn't paying a courtesy compliment to a rising star. She was making a technical assessment. The ability to absorb pace, to reset defensive positions, and convert pressure points into baseline construction is one of the most difficult skills to develop at the elite level. Collins was saying Eala already has it. The gap she identified came on the other side of the equation, the second serve. On that specific weakness, the second serve definitely can sit up at times. It's a little bit slower paced, so it gives people an opportunity to step in against her, and then it's a bit of a tug-of-war battle, so she can get some more pop on that serve. Asked whether fixing the serve would be straightforward, Collins was direct. I think it's a little bit more difficult. I think for a lot of players it either comes naturally or it doesn't. This is the dual portrait Collins painted. World-class in one dimension, significantly limited in another. Both halves of that portrait matter, because the WTA's institutional praise is built on the first half, while the scoreline against Muchova was largely determined by the second. The praise extended well beyond Collins. 3 other respected voices in tennis went on record with assessments that ranged from frank critique to genuine long-term prediction, and the combination of all 4 tells the most complete story of where Eala currently sits. Jimmy Arias, who reached a career-high world ranking of number 5 in 1984 and was working alongside Collins on Tennis Channel, broke down the serve problem in the most technical terms available. His analysis focused on the kinetic chain, the sequence of physical movements from the ground up that generates serve velocity. She doesn't have much on the second serve. She is a lefty, so if she can just get the serve wider, you have to have the kinetic chain perfectly working from the ground all the way up through the serve, and I don't think she does have much from the legs that's helping her get a little extra power. For a left-hander, a developed serve is one of the most disruptive weapons in the sport. The natural angle into right-handed returners, the kick serve that pulls opponents off the court, all of it becomes significantly more dangerous at higher velocity. Arias was identifying the gap between what Eala's left-handedness could theoretically produce and what it's currently delivering. Greg Rusedski, the former British number 1 who reached a career-high world ranking of number 4, delivered his assessment on his podcast in a way that paired the critique honestly with a long-term prediction. Eala is getting into the later stages of tournaments, but once she gets there, she's getting beaten in pretty one-sided matches. He then made the observation that has circulated across tennis media since Miami. She needs to improve the serve. The serve gets you on the front foot from the start. She's going to need to get physically stronger. She's still young. Let's not forget that. She's still very young and has many more years to develop. She is too good a player not to make it into the top 10. She is great for the WTA. Paul Annacone, whose coaching career included stints with both Roger Federer and Pete Sampras, 2 of the greatest servers in the history of the sport, had offered his own assessment at Indian Wells before Miami had even begun. For me, it was terrific to see her take that match and watch her play after that and watch her try to continue to progress, because I like her game. She's got a lot of good hand-eye coordination and ability to take the ball early and redirect. The fact that Annacone's praise came before the loss, not as consolation afterwards, is worth registering. It was a prospective assessment, not a retrospective one, which makes it harder to dismiss as professional courtesy. Across 4 separate voices and 4 distinct analytical frameworks, the serve emerged as the unanimous technical ceiling. And behind the serve problem, every one of them found something they wanted to see developed further. The WTA's decision to publish a detailed feature interview with Eala during Miami Week wasn't incidental. The quotes they chose to highlight reveal exactly what the institution wants the tennis world to associate with her beyond the results. In that official WTA interview, Eala said, "What I know are facts and truths, and the truth is that I've been working really hard, and I know I've been taking the right steps and approaching it in the right way in terms of what I need to do on court, so that gives me more calm. And fortunately, I've been doing well between last year's Miami and this year's Miami, so I'm in a position where this tournament is not all or nothing." Speaking to Andy Roddick on the Served podcast during the same period, she added, "Nothing changed much in terms of who I am from 2025 to 2026. It's just that my success kind of skyrocketed, which I'm very thankful for." After the Muchova loss itself, asked what she was taking away from the experience, Eala offered a line that her coaching staff should probably frame: "After a great win, I'm not all that good, and after a bad loss, I'm not all that bad." That line isn't deflection, it's genuine psychological balance from a 20-year-old navigating a career trajectory that has moved faster than almost anyone on the WTA Tour had the infrastructure to manage. She reached the 4th round of a WTA 1000 event for the 3rd consecutive time, the Dubai quarterfinal, the Indian Wells round of 16, and now the Miami round of 16. Sitting 17th in the 2026 race to the WTA Finals, which tracks only current year points, her season trajectory remains one of the strongest on tour for any player outside the top 10. Despite losing 270 net ranking points in Miami, the broader picture hasn't fundamentally shifted. After her 3-hour, 20-minute victory over Laura Siegemund in the 2nd round, the longest match of her WTA career, she came off court and said simply, "That was one of my goals last year after this tournament, to improve physically, and here I am, fresh as a flower." A player who survives the longest match of her career describes the aftermath in those terms, and then competes again 2 days later is not a player whose narrative ends with a 6-0, 6-2 scoreline. The WTA does not praise players who crash out of tournaments in bagel sets because it's feeling generous. Institutions don't operate on sentiment. Rusedski predicted a top 10 future on his podcast. Collins went on record calling her defensive absorption world-class in front of a national television audience. The WTA published a feature mid-tournament calling her a true global sensation. Annacone, who shaped 2 of the greatest servers who ever played the game, said he likes her game. Karolina Muchova won 6-0, 6-2 in 1 hour. And somehow, Eala left Miami with more institutional backing than she arrived with. The Linz Open begins April 6th, and clay is her weakest surface by a significant margin. With only 70 ranking points to defend across the entire clay swing, everything she earns from Austria onward is free gain. The same experts who praised her this week will be watching to see whether the serve develops and the physical platform catches up, and whether the gap Muchova exposed in Miami gets addressed before Roland Garros in May. If you want the analysis that tracks every dimension of that development, technical, tactical, ranking implications, and the moment's mainstream coverage buries in footnotes, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. The Linz draw preview drops before the first ball is struck in Austria. Because the story of what Alex Eala becomes in 2026 is the most interesting ongoing narrative in women's tennis, and it's only getting started.